interesting one. So recently, we're going to talk about it shortly. The gag order that was placed on the Bryan Kohberger trial has been lifted. And now that that's been lifted, we're actually finding out more information about what Bryan Kohberger had going on, some more details about information that went into the investigation, and possibly what Bryan Kohberger's intent was. So check this video out from Fox News, and then we'll get into another story a little bit later talking about Bryan Kohberger possibly being open to an interview. Check this out.
So Bryan Kohberger pleading guilty to the murder of 4 Idaho students left many details of the case unexplained without a criminal trial.
It's still unexplained.
Our next guest's new book, The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy, includes an unparalleled look into the quadruple murders after interviewing over 300 individuals connected with the victims, revealing shocking new details about what those closest to the victims believe was the motive. Best-selling author James Patterson joins us now. James, thanks so much for joining the program this morning.
Shout out to James.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
So I know you don't want to give up all the goods in the book. I covered this case for months, and I was looking.
I'd give it up if you give me enough time.
Okay, so tell me, what was the motive?
Complicated, and we'll never know. I bet if I talk to him, I bet he doesn't exactly know. He obviously had a big problem with women. We believe he was targeting Maddie, and things had happened. He'd just gotten fired from his, he was going to lose his scholarship out there at University of Washington State. I'll tell you one thing, anybody listening and watching, if you're disappointed because you're not going to find out what's happening in the trial, everything that would have been covered in the trial is covered in this book. Everything and so much more. Things about the police department there, things about Kohberger, which you're getting into. One of the interesting things is we went down to Pennsylvania, Vicki Ward and I, and he was a heroin addict as a young guy there, and he was breaking and entering into houses. He'd been doing it for years, and that's exactly what happened in Moscow. He broke it.
And I'll leave a link to the book for you guys in the description of this video as well. But it's interesting to see that Bryan Kohberger is being alleged that maybe he just saw a target and went after it. This wasn't even, he didn't even plan it like that. He just knew he wanted to go after this person. Allegedly, it's Maddie. We'll wait and hear more information.
Into this house and killed these 4 beautiful students.
So you write this in the book, and I think this is important. The Idaho 4, under Detective knowing Bryan Kohberger. This is one of the detectives assigned to the case. His name is Brett Payne. He says, we think we know who the suspect is, and he's in WSU housing. And then he says his name, Bryan Kohberger. Odd name, Jenkins thinks, but it's an oddly familiar name. It rings a bell, and then it comes to him. I know that name. He tells the people in the room. He sees astonishment on their faces. I think I interviewed him for an internship position when I was the Pullman chief. I probably have his resume and cover letter in my files. He goes straight back to his office and sends them over. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people know Brian was studying criminology. Yeah. And then he tried to get into the, get a job as an intern in the police department out there. The police department did a terrific job. I mean, they had one bad press conference, but other than that, because Brian almost committed the perfect murder. Had he not left that chief, there would not have been a trial. They didn't. The evidence they had was, I think, circumstantial. And it wouldn't have happened.
Well, James, I think
the police, and we get into the police. I mean, and the chief of police, who did a terrific job. Everybody did a good job out there, and they got him.
The problem, James, and you're so right about this, and that's why I always said this case was an iffy one going to trial. How they obtained the DNA was the night shift. And if you look at...
and that was my issue with this as well. And I really wanted to see the evidence on this, which we may get an opportunity to. But with the knife sheath and them finding this just single trace of DNA, with everything that was going on, with this setup, alleged setup, how could that possibly have happened? I guess we're going to find out at some point. Maybe not.
At some of the case, he went back to the house after he committed the crime based on the cell phone data. I think he realized that he had left some of the evidence, but he worked at the crime light as an internship, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how he thought he would get the sheath back, but he did go back the next morning, which is pretty insane, but I guess that's probably makes sense.
James, what do you think is the biggest takeaway people are going to learn from this book? Because that's why they would purchase it.
Oh, look, what Vicki and I tried to do was not to glorify Kohberger, but to get people to feel these 4 students who were murdered and their families. They're 4 beautiful families, and also the kids. You got 2 college towns here. You have Moscow, Idaho, University of Idaho, and then Pullman, Washington, Washington State. And you think about whatever college is near your university where your kids go or whatever, and you imagine these murders in one of those small towns or even in a big city like NYU. It's horrifying. It's a horrifying thing. But what we wanted to do is for you to feel as though you were there in that town the next day. There's been this terrible murder. It's happened to 4, wonderful kids, and they really are wonderful kids. Really, really was such great friends, and had friends all over the campus.
That's sad.
The families who we got to know really well. I've never, so personal in terms of Vicky and I with victims, and I've done a bunch of true crime. I did the Epstein thing way back. And you mentioned 300 interviews. When I did Epstein, we did about 60 interviews.
Wow.
So we really interviewed the hell out of this book. Yeah. And and if you like true crime, even if you haven't followed this thing, it's an amazing story.
I'll have
James
to check
Patterson,
it out.
You should get his.
Shout out to James Patterson with the Idaho 4. Might have to check that one out. I'll leave the link in the description for you guys. Let's go ahead into this Fox News article and see what actually we could find out in this book and what information we might be able to see from the evidence that was shown and was going to be shown during this trial. The judge says Kohberger's waiver of rights to appeal doesn't mean he doesn't have a right to appeal. Obviously, the judge lifts the gag order and wants Bryan Kohberger confessed. Idaho Judge Stephen Hippler vacated a gag order in the Bryan Kohberger quadruple murder case at a hearing on Thursday. It was yesterday. Lada, hopefully I said that right. Lada County prosecuting attorney notified the court in a filing dated Monday that his office would not oppose a motion for a group of media organizers, including Fox News, seeking to have the order lifted in the wake of Kohberger's guilty pleas on all charges. The intent of the order was to ensure Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial, which, of course, I think that was smart on the defense's part, according to the filings. Now that he has admitted to slaying, Madison, Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan, attorneys for the media argue that the gag order is pointless. Hippler agreed, but he said that lifting the order would not automatically unseal court documents, so we might not have all the evidence yet. Those would be made public in batches, he said, upon review by the court. And we're going to actually get into the footage from court when this hearing took place. So if you guys are watching this as a standalone video, make sure you check out that video after this one. He said he would go in reverse chronological order, stating with documents he was most familiar with and moving back in time. The case did not arrive in his courtroom until another judge granted a change of venue in September. In another twist, Hippler also said that though Kohberger's plea requires him to waive his right to appeal, that doesn't mean he doesn't have a right to appeal under the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Graza versus Idaho. Now, I recognize the plea agreement includes a waiver of the right to appeal, he said, but as the parties probably know, the U.S. Supreme Court in Graza versus Idaho has indicated the fact that a defendant waives the right to appeal doesn't mean they don't have the right to appeal. And so it may affect the outcome of that appeal, and it may affect the underlying case and plea agreement. Prosecutors initially requested the order remain in place until after Kohberger's sentencing is made official next week, but the reverse course upon further reflection, according to the latest filing. The defense opposed filing it early. Now that the defendant has pleaded guilty as charged on all 5 counts of the indictment, his right to a fair trial on the issue of guilt is no longer an issue, Thompson wrote. Nevertheless, out of respect for the integrity of the judicial process and the privacy of the victims and their families, as they consider their rights to provide victim impact statements at sentencing, the prosecution team does not intend to make any public statements about the case until after sentencing has concluded. And shout out to the prosecution team for that. I think that's fair. I think that's fair too, because we are going to get to hear from the family. Every last one. Hopefully their parents have a lot to say, and we can hear from the fathers, the mothers, the friends, the family, because so many people were affected by these 4 lives that were lost. And I want to move forward into another topic. Now, this has not been verified, but when it comes to this gag order being released, now that it seems like people who were involved in the trial are free to talk, we may actually be able to get an interview from Bryan Kohberger. This is alleged. I haven't backed this up yet. And as I get more information on if that's happening, I will let you guys know. But check this out. And this is an article that we have from Donna Thomas that says, admitted mass murderer Bryan Kohberger has consented to a sit-down interview, which would be insane. It says Bryan Kohberger has consented to a no-holds-barred sit-down interview this fall. This is alleged, guys. We don't know that this is for sure, but seems like it's something that could be possible. According to well-placed sources, admitted mass murderer Bryan Kohberger at age 30 will give a first-hand account of his actions on November 13th in 2022 in Moscow, Idaho. Kohberger pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree premeditated murder and 1 count of burglary on July 2nd of 2025. The former PhD student admitted to the crimes he was being prosecuted for, thus putting an end to his highly anticipated murder trial set to start in August in Boise, Idaho. Kohberger will be formally sentenced to life without the possibility of parole on July 23rd. So that's coming next week, guys. And you know, we will be here for it. The primetime non-cable network interview will coincide with the 3rd anniversary of the grisly murders of the 4 University of Idaho students in Moscow, Idaho. Kohberger already admitted to unlawfully entering the students' off-campus house at that address through an unlocked door and systematically murdering Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Zana. According to the state of Idaho, Kohberger targeted one of the students and used a military-type K-bar knife to carry out the grisly murders. All right. And then we have Kohberger's family to receive payment for supplying never-before-seen pictures. This is interesting. According to sources, it was Kohberger's family that convinced Bryan Kohberger to consent to the interview. What? That's surprising. Amanda Kohberger, 37, has had to move back to her parents' home in Pennsylvania. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Both Kohberger's older sisters, Amanda and Melissa, were working in the mental health care industry. That's ironic. One was terminated. The other resigned shortly after their brother's arrest in December of 2022. According to sources close to the family, they hope with Kohberger setting the record straight, they can move forward and resume their once very productive lives. That is amazing. They all feel as if they have been under siege and subjected to unfair, endless wrath from the public at large. This was a grown man. There's no reason that people should be going after his family. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think Bryan Kohberger could possibly sit down for an interview? I think if he were to do that, that would be a record-breaking interview for sure. And also, we're going to get into later what this gag order being lifted means and some of the information that we're going to see coming out from that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and in the chat.